Hey guys, it's Miss Leibowitz. So for this week, we're going to work on something that we've worked on before, but we're going to continue to work on it so that you're really ready for third grade. So what we're going to be working on this week is point of view, which is also perspective. When you're thinking about point of view, we're thinking about how a character feels or how they act. Remember what they say, what they do, how they feel, right? How they behave. That's a point of view. I know we also learned about first person, second person, and third person, which is very important to know, but we're really going to be focusing on how the character feels and what their perspective is. Okay, so perspective is how they see it, what they see. So let's move on. So point of view is how they feel or act in a story. So how a character feels or acts in a story. So most of the time when they're like talking about the point of view, it is going to be a fiction story, but not always. They might on tests or in passages, they might give you a nonfiction story and ask you what is the author's point of view, which is kind of like what's the author's purpose, like how does the author feel. But most of the time when we're talking about perspective or point of view, it's going to be a fiction story. So let's look at the reading habits. Strong readers notice the character's point of view and how their own points may be different. So how you feel might be different from how a character feels. So a good reader, it says, I notice how characters feel and think about events in the story. So that's saying if you're a good reader, while you're reading, you will start to notice how the character feels and what the character thinks about in different events or different times of the story. I can use the right voice out loud to show how a character might think. So I want you to think about that when you're reading a story, and if you're reading a story out loud and all of a sudden you see that there's quotation marks and that the character is talking and they say something that they're really excited about. Are you going to say it in a really excited voice, or are you going to say it in like a sad, like slow voice? If they're excited, you would say it in an excited voice. So when you're a good reader and you're thinking about the point of view, you would change your voice and express how they feel in the way that you read what they say. It also says that sometimes one character acts or feels differently from another character in the same story. This happens a lot, right? You'll be reading one story and you'll see the different points of view or the different perspectives of two different characters. And sometimes they're the same at the beginning and then they change at the end, or the opposite. Sometimes they're different at the beginning and they are the same at the end. But you always have to think, how are these characters feeling? Is it the same or is it different? And then it says, I notice when my point of view is different from a character's point of view. Sometimes I don't agree with how a character feels or acts. So when you're reading a story and you're thinking about their point of view, how the character feels, are you also reflecting and thinking, is this how I feel? Is this what I would think? Is this what I do? If you read, or if you're reading the Tonight on the Titanic, a lot of the time I ask you questions like, what would you have done? What would you do? Would you have done the same thing as Annie? So that's me asking if your point of view or your perspective is the same, because that's what a good reader does. If you can really tell a character's point of view, then you can compare it and contrast it to your own point of view. So we're going to do some examples together, and we're going to talk about how point of view is the same thing as perspective, which I know you guys have seen on some of our tests, because you're like, what does perspective mean? Perspective is point of view. And here we go. What does perspective mean? Perspective. Hey, I recognize a root word within the word perspective. I'll bet I'll be able to use the root word to help define the word. the Latin root spect. So they're saying the underlying word SPECT means to see. So if spect means to see, what do you think perspective means? Spect means to see. So what does perspective mean? How it refers to how a person sees a given situation. So when I see two people arguing, my perspective, I see that they are not having a good time or that they're fighting. That's my perspective. That's what I see a given situation. And what I see, my perspective might be different from your perspective or from the character's perspective. So perspective is really just a synonym for point of view. Perspective and point of view are basically the same thing. Perspective is how somebody sees a specific situation, how they feel about it, and what they think is happening. So two people can have two different perspectives. Two people can see two things differently. That means two people can see things in a different way. Let's look at an example. Tomorrow is the first game of the college football season. So we have two different points of view, two different perspectives. Blake's perspective. I can't wait to watch football games on TV every Saturday this fall. This is the best time of the year. So Blake's point of view. And then let's read Kellen's perspective or point of view. Kellen's perspective. Ugh, it's football season again. My dad is going to be sitting on the sofa watching football games every Saturday for the next few months. Watching football on TV is boring. So they have two different points of view. They feel two different ways. Blake's perspective is what? What do you think his point of view is? What is Blake's point of view about the college football season? Blake's point of view about the college football season is they are excited, right? How do you know that Blake's point of view is excited about football? It says, I can't wait. This is the best time of the year. So those are two things that tell me that Blake's perspective is excited about football season. So let's look at Kellen's perspective or point of view. How does Kellen feel about college football season? Kellen does not feel excited about college football season. How do you know that Kellen does not feel excited about college football season? It says, ugh, ugh, ugh. You don't really say that unless you're not happy. It's football season again. And they didn't say it with an exclamation, which tells me that they're not excited about it either. And even down at the bottom, watching football on TV is boring. His perspective or point of view is told to you right there. They feel like football is boring and they don't want to watch football. That's Kellen's perspective or point of view. Blake's perspective or point of view is that they can't wait and that they're excited about college football season. So those are two ways, that's one example on how there could be two different points of view or two different perspectives about the same thing. Can you identify the two different perspectives for the following event? So I want you to do this. What are the two different perspectives or two different points of view? Adam and Alyssa's dad tells them that they are going to go on a road trip to California from their home to Pennsylvania. So that's what they're doing. We have Adam and Alyssa. They're going on a road trip to California. This is going to be great. We'll all be able to see several cool landmarks like the Grand Canyon and Mammoth Cave. What a long trip. I always feel motion sick when I have to ride in the back seat of the car. this isn't going to be fun at all. So what are the two different perspectives or two different points of view? How do the two characters feel? Well, Alyssa says this is going to be great. So it seems like she is happy. Her perspective about the road trip is that she is excited about the road trip. And I know that she is excited about the road trip because she says this is going to be great and we're going to get to see cool landmarks. Now, if she wasn't excited about the road trip, would she call them cool landmarks? No, she would probably say boring landmarks or different things like not cool or something like that to explain the landmarks. If she thinks that the landmarks are cool, then there's no way that she would think that this is going to be boring, right? She is excited. Alyssa's perspective about the road trip is that she is excited to go on the road trip. Now, what is Adam's perspective or point of view about the road trip? What a long trip. So we already know he is not happy about going on the road trip. So his point of view is that he is not happy about going on the road trip. How do you know that he is not happy? What does he say or how does he act? What proves that he is not happy about the road trip? He says, what a long trip. When you're excited to do something, you usually don't think about how long it's going to take, right? When you think about going to Disney, you don't think about how long you're going to be there, like, oh my God, we're going to be there so long. You wouldn't say that if you're excited about something. You only think about how long something's going to take if you're really not excited about it. So that's one clue that tells me that he's not excited. What's another way that I know that his point of view, that his perspective is not happy about going on the road trip? What else does he say or do? He says that he always feels motion sick when he sits in the back seat of the car. Motion sick means when you feel like nauseous or feel like you're going to get sick from being, it's like people get that in the car or get it on boats. So he feels sick. Being in the car actually makes him feel sick. So there's no way that he could be excited if he actually feels sick. So that tells me another way that I know that he is not happy about the road trip. And his last sentence actually says, this isn't going to be fun at all. So he actually says, this is not going to be fun. So that's another clue, another way that it proves that his point of view and his perspective is that he's not happy about the road trip. So these are some more examples that we'll do together. So this one, I really like this one. Can you identify the two different perspectives from the following event? Jonah begged his parents to buy a trumpet for him. They agreed to buy one for him as long as he practices from 4 to 4:30 each day. It is now 4 o'clock. So they buy him a trumpet and they tell him they're only going to buy it if he practices every day at 4 o'clock until 4:30. And now it's 4 o'clock. So let's see what happens. I don't feel like practicing my trumpet. I want to go play soccer with my friends. Jonah needs to practice. I spent a lot of money buying that trumpet, so he needs to practice each day like he promised he would. So what are the two perspectives? How does Jonah feel about practicing right now at 4? He does not want to practice. How do you know that that is his perspective, that how he feels, that he doesn't want to practice? How do you know? What are the clues that prove that he doesn't want to practice? He actually says, I don't feel like practicing, right? And then another clue that would tell me is that I want to go play soccer. He wants to play soccer instead of practicing his trumpet. How does his dad feel? What is his dad's point of view or perspective about Jonah practicing? He feels that Jonah needs to practice. His point of view is that Jonah needs to practice and needs to do that every day. How do you know that that's how he feels? How do you know that's his perspective? He says Jonah needs to practice. And he also says that he spent a lot of money, so he needs to keep his promise, right? So those are two clues that tell me that his point of view and his perspective is that he feels that Jonah needs to practice. These are two different perspectives about the same problem. Authors often create characters with different perspectives. Read the following 3 passages and identify the contrasting perspectives between the 2 characters within the passage. So we're not going to do all, we're going to maybe do 2. So let's see. Katie, can you help me add this contact to my phone? I just can't remember how to do everything on this fancy new iPhone, said Katie's grandmother, handing her the phone. Sure, Grandma, replied Katie. I'm a pro at this because it's just like my iPod. It's really quite easy. Just watch what I do. Katie touched the screen a few times and then handed the phone back to her grandma. Thanks, Katie. I have no idea how you did that, though. I think I might be too old to learn all this new technology. Just when I think I figured it out, they change it all again, Katie's grandmother complained. I love new technology, said Katie. In fact, I can't wait to find out what the next version of the iPhone will be able to do. So we have 2 perspectives and 2 points of view. So number 1, we need to find who are the characters. We have Katie and her grandma. What is the topic that they're talking about? They're talking about the iPhone and technology, right? And how does each character feel about that topic? What is their perspective? And how do you know? How does Katie feel about technology and iPhones? What is her perspective and her point of view? She likes technology and she likes iPhones, right? And how do you know that that is her perspective? What does she say and what does she do to prove that she likes technology? Well, number 1, she says, I'm a pro at this, right? When you like something, you tend to practice it and you get really good at it. If you don't like something, you usually don't say that you're the best or you're a pro at it, right? What else does she do to prove that she likes technology? She says, I love new technology, right? So that's one thing that she does. She says, I love technology, and she says, I'm a pro. And she even says, I can't wait to find out what the next version is of the iPhone, right? And what it'll be able to do. So the things that she says tells me, the reader, that she loves technology. But also what she does tells me that she loves technology. She touched the screen a few times and fixed the problem and gave it right back to her grandma, right? So that also tells me that she's good with technology and she likes it. What is grandma's point of view or perspective about technology? She does not like it, right? Or she feels bad that she can't do it very well. So how do you know that her perspective is that she does not like technology? What proves that? What does she say and what does she do? Well, the first thing she does is gives her phone to Katie because she can't figure out what to do. So that's one thing that tells me, oh, she doesn't like technology. She doesn't even want to work with it or try to fix it, right? So she gives it to Katie. What does she say that proves that that her perspective is she doesn't like technology? She says, I think I might be too old to learn all this new technology. Just when I figured it out, they change it again. So, and then it says that it says Katie's grandmother complained. So she's complaining about all the new technology and she feels like she's always behind, right? So that's something that she says to prove that she does not like technology. Are these perspectives the same or are they different? They are different. So Katie's perspective that new technology is exciting, and grandma's perspective is that new technology is confusing and overwhelming to try to learn. So we're not going to go through all of these. What I really want you to think about is how points of view and perspective are the same, right? So you need to think, what is the character feeling? What is the character trying to tell me? And what is the character doing to prove the point of view or the perspective? Okay. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is that sometimes you have to analyze what the author's perspective is. So sometimes this is when I was talking about how there might be nonfiction stories sometimes that you have to do point of view. So sometimes you have to tell me what the author's perspective or point of view is in a nonfiction story. So we're going to be looking for that. Do you consider fruit snacks healthy? I asked 10 8-year-olds that very question, and 8 out of 10 children stated that they considered fruit snacks to be healthy. In fact, one child informed me that since fruit snacks are made of fruit, they had to be healthy. Consider this. A tiny bag of fruit snacks contains about 5 teaspoons of sugar per pouch. That's a lot of sugar for a small snack. Also, they contain no protein, fiber, or healthy fat. So kids who eat a serving of fruit snacks will likely be hungry and wanting another snack again very soon. Do you still think fruit snacks are healthy? The next time someone mentions munching on fruit snacks, encourage him or her to find a real piece of fruit to eat instead. So if I asked you, what is the author's perspective or what is the author's point of view about fruit snacks? There are no characters in this, but you can still figure out how the author feels. So the topic is fruit snacks, right? To determine whether fruit snacks are healthy or not. So how does the author feel about fruit snacks? What do you think the author's perspective or point of view is about fruit snacks? The author believes fruit snacks are unhealthy. The author thinks that the fruit snacks are not healthy. How do you know? So let's go back and find where it tells me how the author feels about fruit snacks. So do you consider fruit snacks healthy? I asked all these kids. In fact, one told me that they had to be healthy. So none of that tells me how the author feels. Consider this. A tiny bag of fruit snacks contains about 5 teaspoons of sugar per pouch. That's a lot of sugar for a small snack. So does that sound like a fact or an opinion? That's an opinion. They're saying that's a lot of sugar for a small snack. So already the author is telling me that that's too much sugar, right? And it says that they contain no protein, fiber, or healthy fat. So kids end up being hungry and wanting another snack. So are those ways that the author is telling me why they think it's not healthy? Let's see. Yes. And then at the very end, it says, do you still think fruit snacks are healthy? Would the author ask you that if they wanted you to think that it was healthy? No, the author would say, don't you think fruit snacks are healthy? But he says, do you still think? Because he was hoping that he changed your mind. And then it says to encourage someone to find a real piece of fruit to eat instead. So all of those are clues that tell me that the author does not think that fruit snacks are healthy, that the author's perspective about fruit snacks is that they are not healthy. So those are all the things that I want you to think about when we are talking about doing points of view or perspective. Remember, here we go. Remember that the point of view is how the character feels or acts. And when you think about the point of view or perspective, you think about how the character is feeling about the events in the story, or think about what the author is feeling or trying to make you feel. And you use the right voice when you're reading out loud. And always remember that sometimes one character feels or acts one way and another character feels or acts another way. And the best readers are able to say, well, are able to say that their point of view is different or the same as a character. So you should be able to say that this character feels a certain way, but I feel a different way. So make sure that when you are working this week, that you're thinking about that. How does the character feel? What does the author feel? Is it the same or different than other characters? And we will be doing this a lot with poems this week. So you'll really have to think about how the character feels by reading a poem.